A director asked why I had declined a promotion I had never turned down. The withdrawal email came from my own account at 11:43 at night while I was asleep beside my fiancée. When I showed it to Claire, she did not deny sending it. She said she was protecting the future we had agreed on, and I learned it was not the first career decision she had made for me. I had been with Claire for 6 years and engaged for 9 months. Until that week, I would have told you we had one of the stable relationships people stop asking questions about. We were not dramatic. We did not break up and get back together. Neither of us had a mysterious ex hovering around. We did not fight about money. We had already survived job changes, a flooded apartment, her father's surgery, my mother's retirement move, and one absolutely miserable road trip where the air conditioning died 3 hours from home. We worked well together. At least I thought we did. I'm a building automation engineer. Most people hear that and assume I install thermostats. The real job is somewhere between controls programming, electrical troubleshooting, mechanical systems, and convincing large buildings to stop fighting themselves. Hospitals, university labs, office towers, warehouses. If a new building has hundreds of sensors, dampers, pumps, valves, alarms, and control sequences that all need to behave as one system, people like me show up near the end and make sure it actually works. I like the work because problems eventually had answers. Claire was a speech therapist at an elementary school. She loved routine in a way I never did. Same grocery store, same Sunday breakfast place, holidays scheduled months ahead. She had lived within 20 miles of her parents her entire life and genuinely liked that. I traveled more than she did, but not constantly. Most of my projects were local. A few times a year, commissioning work took me away for several days. That had always been the compromise. I did not chase every travel-heavy assignment, and Claire did not treat every hotel stay like abandonment. When we got engaged, we talked about eventually buying a house somewhere between my office and her school. We talked about kids in the vague way engaged couples do when the wedding is still more concrete than the children. 2 someday. Maybe 3 if the first 2 were easy, which every parent we knew found hilarious. We never set a date for that part of our life. We definitely never agreed that I would stop progressing at work. The promotion was regional commissioning lead. It was not some executive title. It did not come with a corner office or a company jet. It meant I would lead the complicated projects instead of reporting to whoever was assigned above me. Better salary, more say over schedules, more responsibility for training younger engineers. It also meant roughly 8 to 10 weeks of travel spread across the year. I knew the position was opening because my director, Graham, had mentioned it months earlier. I told Claire I was interested. She was not excited. That was obvious. She asked how much travel. I said probably more than now, but less random because I would control more of the schedule. She asked what happened if we had a baby. I said then we would revisit it like normal people and figure out what worked. She said, I don't want to build a life around revisiting everything. I remember that sentence because I thought it was just anxiety. Claire's father had spent most of her childhood traveling for medical equipment sales. She hated it. He was not a bad dad, but he missed birthdays, school events, random Tuesday dinners, all the boring things that become childhood when you add them together. Claire had told me more than once that she never wanted that kind of marriage. I understood. I had no interest in becoming a ghost with a suitcase either. So I told her the promotion was not a decision yet. I had not even interviewed. We would talk before I accepted anything. She said okay. That was in May. In June, Graham told me he had put my name forward. There were 3 internal candidates. I did 1 interview with him and our operations manager. A second interview was supposed to happen with the vice president who oversaw our region. And nothing for almost 3 weeks. I assumed they had gone with somebody else. That is common in companies. Nobody schedules a ceremony to tell you that you finished second. And Graham stopped me outside a mechanical room on a hospital project. He said, I'm glad you reconsidered. I asked what he meant. He looked confused. The lead role, I thought you were out. I said I had never said I was out. Now he looked more confused. He pulled out his phone and searched his email. Then he showed me a message from my personal account, not my company account, my personal email. It said I appreciated the opportunity, but after discussing long-term family priorities with my fiancée, I had decided the travel requirements were not compatible with the life we were building. It was polite, professional. It sounded enough like me that Graham had never questioned it. At the bottom was my name. The timestamp was 11:43 p.m. on a Thursday. I knew exactly where I had been. At home, asleep. I had been on site at 6 that morning and crashed early. Claire had been awake grading therapy notes on the couch. I read the email 3 times. Graham asked if I was okay. I said I did not know. He asked whether my account had been hacked. I said maybe. Then he told me something that made the situation worse. The role was not fully closed. Their first choice candidate had accepted, then backed out because his wife got transferred to another state. Graham had contacted me that morning because he thought my situation might have changed too. That was the only reason the fake withdrawal had surfaced. If the other candidate had stayed, I probably would have spent the rest of my career believing I simply had not been selected. I drove home with the email open on my phone at every red light. Claire was making pasta when I walked in. She smiled and asked why I was early. I put my phone on the counter. Did you send this? She looked at the screen. Her face did not change much. That scared me more than panic would have. She turned the burner down. Then she said, I was going to tell you. I actually laughed because the alternative was yelling. When? She said she did not know. I asked again whether she sent it. She said yes. No long denial. No fake hacker story, just yes. I asked how she got into my email. She said my account was still logged in on the tablet we used in the kitchen. That was true. We both used that tablet for recipes, bills, travel confirmations, music. I had never thought of my email being open there as giving her permission to speak as me. Claire said she saw Graham's follow-up asking to schedule the second interview. She panicked. Her word, panicked. She thought if I got further into the process, I would accept because I loved the work and hated disappointing people. I said that was my decision to make. She said, our life is not only your decision. I agreed. Then I asked why that somehow made it hers. She told me I was twisting it. She said we had already talked about not wanting a marriage built around travel. I reminded her that I had promised to discuss an offer before accepting it. I had not promised not to interview. She said the interview was just a step toward the same outcome. I said, you wrote an email as me, she said, because you weren't hearing what I was saying. That sentence changed the temperature of the room. Not because it was loud, because it explained too much. I asked Claire to tell me exactly what she thought would happen. She said I would be disappointed for a few weeks, then another project would come along. We would get married in October. We would start looking seriously at houses after the wedding. Within a year or 2, we would have a baby. She said none of that was unreasonable. I told her the future she was describing might have been perfectly reasonable. It was still not hers to secure by deleting choices before I could make them. She cried. I did not comfort her. I was too busy trying to remember every career disappointment from the last few years. That thought arrived so suddenly I felt cold. 18 months earlier, I had applied for a manufacturer certification program. It was competitive because the company paid for the course, travel, and exam. I made the final group, and I got an email saying the cohort was full. 6 months before that, a senior engineer named Omar had asked if I wanted to help on a university lab project for several weekends. It would have been excellent experience. The conversation just disappeared. I assumed the project changed. I looked at Claire. She immediately knew what I was thinking. No, she said. I had not asked anything yet. I said, no what? She started cleaning a counter that was already clean. I asked about the certification program. She said she had nothing to do with that. I asked about Omar. She said that was different. I felt something inside me drop. Omar had emailed my personal account because the weekend work was optional, and he was trying not to bother me through company channels. Claire saw it. She replied that I had family commitments and could not take on extra weekends. She said it was one email. I asked how many times she had done this. She said twice. I asked whether the promotion made 3. She said the certification did not count because she had not touched it. That was not the answer I wanted. I told her I was going to stay with my brother for the night. Claire followed me into the bedroom while I packed a bag. She kept saying we needed to talk, which was almost funny considering the problem. I said we had talked. She just treated conversations as drafts until she got the result she wanted. She said that was cruel. I said pretending to be me in professional emails was cruel. She asked if I was really going to throw away 6 years over 2 messages and 1 promotion. I told her I did not know what I was throwing away yet because I no longer knew how many choices had actually been mine. My brother Nathan opened his door at 10:30 and took one look at the overnight bag. He did not ask whether Claire cheated. He asked, who died? I said, possibly my engagement. Then I told him what happened. Nathan is 2 years younger than me and has exactly the wrong personality for calming anyone down. His first reaction was to ask if she had been opening my physical mail too. I said I did not think so. He asked if I was sure. I hated that I could not answer immediately. The next morning I changed every password I had. Email, banking, cloud storage, work portal, phone account. Not because I thought Claire was going to steal money. Because I suddenly understood how much of adult life is just access followed by trust. And I called Graham. I told him the truth. Not every relationship detail, just the necessary part. The withdrawal had not been sent by me. Someone with access to a shared home device had replied without my permission. I apologized for the confusion. Graham was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, that's a new one. I almost laughed. He told me IT would need to document the account issue because company business had been discussed through an external address. He also said the vice president was still willing to interview me if I wanted. I said yes. And I hesitated. I asked whether accepting the interview now would look like I was making a relationship decision out of anger. Graham said, Daniel, interviewing for your own promotion is not revenge. I needed to hear that from somebody who had no reason to flatter me. The interview was scheduled for Monday. I spent the weekend at Nathan's. Claire called 11 times on Saturday. I answered twice. The first call lasted 8 minutes. She apologized for sending the promotion email. I asked whether she was apologizing because it was wrong or because I found out. She said that was unfair. I told her it was the only question I cared about. She said she had been scared. I believed her. She said every time my career advanced, travel followed, more responsibility, more calls, more nights where dinner got reheated. She said she could see our future becoming her childhood. I told her fear explained why she wanted a different answer. It did not give her the right to answer for me. The second call was worse. She said her mother thought we needed premarital counseling immediately. I asked why her mother knew. Claire paused. And she admitted her parents had known about the promotion before I did. Not the fake email. The promotion itself. Claire had told them in May that I was considering a travel-heavy role, and she was worried I would choose it. Her mother told her not to let us start marriage with incompatible expectations. I asked what Claire told them after that. She said that we'd handled it. I asked what that meant. She did not answer. Sunday afternoon, Claire's father, Dennis, called me. I almost ignored it. Then I thought I might learn something. Dennis said he was not calling to defend Claire. He sounded embarrassed. He said Claire had told them months earlier that we agreed I would move into a less travel-heavy position after the wedding. I had never agreed to that. Dennis continued. They had been looking at houses near them because Claire said we wanted family close when we had children. That part was not completely invented. We had discussed being near family. But then he said they had assumed I would handle most school pickups because Claire's school schedule started early and my new office role would be flexible. I stopped him. What new office role? Silence. Dennis said Claire told them I wanted to move toward facilities management instead of field commissioning. I did not. I had once mentioned that some engineers do that later in their careers. I was 32. Apparently one conversation about a possible future had become a plan everyone knew except me. Dennis apologized. He said he thought those were decisions we had made together. I thanked him for telling me. Then I sat in Nathan's spare room for almost an hour without turning on the light. That was the mid-story reveal for me. The fake promotion email was not a panic mistake in isolation. Claire had been building a version of our future in which every uncertain conversation eventually became the answer she preferred. She did not need to control me every day. She only needed to quietly remove the paths that led somewhere she did not want to go. Monday morning, I interviewed for the promotion. It went well. Not movie scene well. Nobody told me I was secretly the best engineer in the company. The vice president asked hard questions. I stumbled on one about staffing. Graham challenged one of my project assumptions. I left thinking I had maybe a 50-50 chance. That felt good. Not because I needed the promotion to prove something to Claire, because I had been allowed to make the choice myself. At evening, Claire asked me to come home and talk in person. I agreed. The apartment looked exactly the same. That was disorienting. Our wedding invitations were stacked on the console table. Her shoes were by the door. The mug I always used was still drying beside the sink. Normal objects are rude like that. They keep existing after your understanding of the room changes. Claire had written out notes. She said she wanted to explain without getting defensive. For the first 20 minutes, she did a good job. She admitted the Omar email was wrong. She admitted the promotion email was worse. She admitted telling her parents that decisions were settled when they were not. She said she had been trying to create certainty because uncertainty made her feel unsafe. I told her that was the first explanation she had given that made sense to me. Then I asked about the certification program again. She looked down at her notes. I knew before she spoke. She had not replied to the certification program. She had deleted the final scheduling email before I saw it. The cohort had not been full when the message arrived. They wanted me to confirm a 3-day training trip. When I never responded, they gave the place to someone else. Claire said she had forgotten about it until I brought it up. I stood up. She told me to wait. I asked how many. She said 3. Omar, certification, promotion, 3 decisions over almost 2 years. She said she never touched anything involving money, never impersonated me with family, never lied about where I was, never cheated, never tried to hurt my career. I said, you keep listing worse things you could have done like that makes this smaller. She started crying. I asked one final question. If Graham emailed tonight with another job that scared you and you knew I might say yes, would you do it again? Claire wiped her face. She took a long time. And she said, if I genuinely believed you were about to choose a job that destroyed the life we agreed to build, I don't know. Maybe. I would hope I could make you understand first. That was the answer, not the one I wanted. The honest one. She still believed the violation became acceptable if she felt certain enough about the outcome. I nodded, understood. I took the engagement ring box from the drawer where we kept important papers. Claire stared at it. I did not make a speech. I told her the wedding was off. She said, Daniel, please? I said I was not punishing her for being afraid of travel. I was ending the engagement because I could not marry someone who believed my consent was optional when the stakes felt important enough. She asked me to stay one more night and go to counseling in the morning. I said no, not forever to counseling. No to treating the wedding as something we had to save before I had even decided whether the relationship could be saved. I packed more clothes and went back to Nathan's. The next day, Claire texted me that she had told the wedding venue to pause everything. That was the first major decision she had made all week that actually respected what I said. It was too late to fix the engagement, but I noticed it. Work handled the email problem with far less drama than my personal life. IT forced a security reset on my accounts, documented the unauthorized access, and told me to stop leaving personal email logged into shared devices. Fair, Graham asked whether I wanted the company to treat it as a formal external interference issue. I said I only wanted the record corrected so nobody believed I had withdrawn and changed my story later. They did that. Nobody called police. Nobody sued anybody. The company had no interest in becoming part of my breakup. On Thursday, Graham told me I did not get the promotion. I was disappointed. That matters to the story. Cleaner version would be that I exposed what happened and immediately got rewarded with a bigger title. Real life did not owe me that. The vice president chose another engineer named Priya, who had already led 2 regional projects. She deserved it. Graham told me I had interviewed well and would be considered for the next opening. Then he asked me to lead commissioning on a large research building starting in November. It was not a promotion, it was good experience. I said yes after looking at the schedule myself. The assignment included 4 separate travel weeks. I read every date twice. And I chose it. That difference felt enormous. The family fallout was messier. Claire's mother called me once. She started by saying she wished I had come to them before ending the engagement. I asked why I would come to them about a decision inside my relationship. She said because families help couples work through fear. I asked whether she knew Claire had sent emails as me. She said no. Then she admitted she had encouraged Claire to be firm about our future because she did not want her daughter raising children alone while I traveled. I said we did not have children. She said, but you were going to. There it was again. Future plans spoken about like completed paperwork. I told her I respected that she wanted a stable life for Claire. I did too. But stability built by quietly reducing one partner's choices was not the kind I wanted. She said I was making Claire sound manipulative. I said I was describing what happened. We ended the call politely enough. Dennis texted me later. I am sorry. I thought you knew all of this. I believed him. Tess, my sister, had a different reaction. She came to Nathan's with 2 coffees and asked why I had never told her I wanted to leave field engineering. I said because I did not. She stared at me. Claire had told her too. At Christmas the previous year, apparently, Tess remembered because she had asked whether I would get bored in an office and Claire said, he'll like having a normal schedule once we have kids. I had been in the kitchen 10 feet away making drinks. I never heard the conversation. That was how subtle the whole thing had been. Claire was not announcing rules to my face. He was describing an imagined future to everyone around us until it started sounding like a decision we had already made. Then, when my actual choices did not match the story, she corrected the choices. For the first 2 weeks after the breakup, I was furious. Then the anger got less useful. I started thinking about how we got there. I had contributed too, just not in the way Claire wanted me to admit. I avoided difficult conversations when I thought they were premature. When she asked exactly how much travel I would accept with children, I often said, we'll figure it out. When she wanted a 5-year plan, I joked that I barely had a 5-day plan. That made her anxiety worse. I can own that. What I cannot own is what she did with the anxiety afterward. There is a difference between saying, I need a clearer answer from you, and becoming the person who manufactures one. Claire and I met 3 weeks later at a coffee shop. Neutral place, daylight, no wedding invitations in sight. She looked exhausted but calmer. He had started seeing a therapist on her own. She said she finally understood why I kept using the word consent even though we were talking about jobs, not sex or money. She said she had treated partnership like permission to intervene, whenever she thought my decision might hurt both of us. I told her I appreciated hearing that. She asked whether it changed anything. I said not yet. She said she was willing to do couples counseling even if the wedding stayed canceled. I considered it. I really did. 6 years is a long time to reduce to one terrible week. Then I asked what she wanted counseling to accomplish. She said she wanted to rebuild trust and eventually get married. Eventually. That word mattered. I said I was not ready to attend counseling with marriage as the target. If I ever sat in a room with her again, it would have to be because we both wanted to understand what happened, not because the old future was waiting for us at the end. She nodded. For once, she did not try to turn uncertainty into a plan. We did one session together a month later. Just one. It was not dramatic. The counselor asked Claire what she thought would have happened if she had not sent the promotion email. Claire said I might have accepted the job. The counselor asked what that would have meant. Claire said that he was choosing work over me. Then the counselor asked me what I thought accepting the job would have meant. I said it would have meant I accepted a job. That gap was our relationship in one exchange. Claire experienced my independent decisions as statements about her. I experienced them as decisions we could discuss and adapt around. Neither worldview made us evil, but only one of us had started secretly changing the other's answers. After the session, Claire and I stood beside our cars for a few minutes. She said she was sorry again. I told her I knew. She asked if I thought there was any chance for us someday. I said I did not want her waiting for me. That was the last relationship conversation we had. We canceled the wedding completely. Most deposits were recoverable because we were still several months out. A few were not. We divided the losses based on what each of us had paid and moved on. I found a smaller apartment near work. Claire stayed in the old place until the lease ended, then moved closer to her school. Nathan helped me move and complained the entire time that I owned too many books for someone who mostly read technical manuals on a tablet. Life became boring again. I mean that as a compliment. I went to work. I came home. I ate dinner when I wanted. I visited my parents. I traveled for the research building in November. The first trip was 5 days. On Tuesday night, I ate terrible hotel pizza while reviewing trend logs from a ventilation system that refused to behave. Nobody was waiting at home angry that I was gone. That did not make me happy exactly. It made me aware of what compromise is supposed to feel like. A real compromise costs both people something they knowingly agreed to pay. It is not one person quietly paying the bill because the other person decided the purchase was necessary. 6 months after the breakup, Graham stopped by my desk. Another commissioning lead position was opening. Different region, slightly less travel than the first one. He said, "Interested?" I did not answer immediately. That was important too. I looked at the project list. I thought about the work, the travel, the salary, the people I would manage, and whether I actually wanted it. Not whether saying yes proved Claire wrong. Not whether saying no meant she had been right. Just whether I wanted the job. I told Graham I wanted the interview. A week later, I got the calendar invitation in my personal email. I was sitting alone at my kitchen table when it arrived. No shared tablet. No one else reading over my shoulder. No future already decided in another room. I opened the message, checked the time, and clicked accept myself.